received the same negative reply. He once more began to ponder, and this time very seriously. His serious thinking first led his reason to the understanding that, without any doubt, one or other of the learned beings of his community was aware of this secret also. But since among beings of that clan, this strict keeping of a professional mystery was very strongly developed, nobody, of course, was willing to reveal it. The result of his serious thinking was that he became aware that it was necessary not merely to question, but to examine the learned beings about this mystery. The same day, he gave appropriate instructions to his nearest corresponding assistants, and the latter already began to examine, after the manner that had already long before been the way of power-possessing beings to examine ordinary beings. And when this peculiar Persian king became finally convinced that the learned beings of this community indeed knew nothing about this mystery, he began to look for learned beings in other communities to whom this mystery might be known. As the kings of the other communities were unwilling to offer their learned beings for examination, he decided forcibly to compel these unconquered kings to do so. And from that time on, at the head of numerous hordes in subjection to him, he began, with their help, to make what are called military excursions. This Persian king had many hordes in subjection to him because at that period, from the region of the surface of this planet of yours where that community was situated, and over which he happened to be king, there had been intensified in the presences of the beings, even before this time, according to what is called the foreseeing adaptation of great nature, the what is called birth rate. And at the given period there was being actualized that which was demanded for the common cosmic trogo-auto-egocratic process, that is to say, from this region of the surface of your planet, there had to issue more of those vibrations arising from the destruction of being existence. During this last explanation, Hassan interrupted Beelzebub with the following words: "Dear grandfather, I do not understand why the issuing of the required vibrations for the purpose of the actualization of this most great cosmic process should depend on a definite region of the surface of the planet." To this question of his grandson, Beelzebub replied as follows: "As before long I intend to make the special question of those terrifying processes of reciprocal destruction which they call wars the theme of my tales concerning the three-brained beings of the planet Earth, it is better to defer this question of yours also until this special tale, because then I think you will understand it well." Having said this, Beelzebub again continued to relate about the Babylonian events. When the peculiar Persian king I mentioned began, thanks to the hordes in subjection to him, to conquer beings of other communities, and to seize by force the learned among them, he assigned as a place for their congregation and existence the said city of Babylon, to which they were taken, in order that this lord of half the then continent of Asia could thereafter freely examine them, in the hope that one of them might perhaps happen to know the secret of turning cheap metal into the metal gold. With the same aim, he even made at that time a special what is called campaign into the country Egypt. He then made this special campaign there because the learned beings of all the continents of the planet were assembled there at that period. The opinion being widely spread there that more information for their various sciences was to be obtained in this Egypt than anywhere else on their planet, This Persian king conqueror then took from Egypt all the learned beings present there, both the native and those who had come from other communities. And among their number were then also several called Egyptian priests, descendants of just those learned members of the society Akaldan, who had chanced to escape, and who had been the first to populate that country. When, a little later, a fresh craze arose in the presence of that peculiar Persian king, the craze for the process itself of the destruction of the existence of other beings similar to himself, and which supplanted the former craze, he forgot about the learned beings, and they began to exist there freely in the city of Babylon, awaiting his further directions. The learned beings, collected in this way there in the city of Babylon from almost the whole of the planet, used often to meet together, and of course to discuss among themselves, as it is proper to the learned beings of the planet Earth, questions which were either immeasurably beyond their comprehension, or about which they could never elucidate anything useful whatsoever, either for themselves or for the ordinary beings there. Well, it was just during these meetings and discussions that there arose among them, as it is in general proper to arise among learned beings there, what is called a burning question of the day. A question which in some way or other indeed interested them at that time to, as they say, their very marrow. The question, which chanced to become the burning question of the day, so vitally touched the whole being of every one of them, that they even climbed down from their what are called pedestals, and began discussing it, not only with the learned like themselves, but also here, there, and everywhere with anyone they chanced to come across. The consequence was that an interest in this question gradually spread among all the ordinary three-brained beings then existing in Babylon, and by about the time we reached this city it had become the question of the day for all the beings there. Not only did these learned themselves talk about and discuss this question, but similar conversations and fierce discussions proceeded like fury among the ordinary beings there also. It was talked about and discussed by the young and the old, by men and women, and even by the Babylonian butchers. Exceedingly anxious were they, particularly the learned, to know about this question. Before our arrival there, many of the beings existing in Babylon had ultimately even lost their reason on account of this question, and many were already candidates for losing theirs. This burning question of the day was that both the sorry learned and also the ordinary beings of the city of Babylon were very anxious to know whether they had a soul. Every possible kind of fantastic theory existed in Babylon upon this question, and more theories were being freshly cooked up, and every, as it is said there, catchy theory had, of course, its followers. Although whole hosts of these various theories existed there, nevertheless they were one and all based upon only two quite opposite assumptions. One of these was called the atheistic, and the other the idealistic or dualistic. All the dualistic theories maintained the existence of the soul and, of course, its immortality, and every